بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Inshallah, this week we continue with our series, and as you know, we were in the midst of the 10 principles of the path of suluk, the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is, we did the first 8, and the previous one was as-samt, which was basically silence. To observe as much silence as possible and not basically speak when we don't need to be speaking. And that basically means not typing as well when we don't need to be speaking. So somebody might be very quiet. There's some people who are very introverted. You can't have a conversation with them face to face. But mashallah, when they're in front of a keyboard, they become alive then. So this is basically talking about silence, meaning no communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as possible. This is not to say we, as I've explained, this is not to say we become hermits, but it's just to try to decrease the kind of things we get involved in for no reason that wastes our time. This one will explain the next 2 points are very pertinent. So number 9, the 9th point is al-qiyamu bil-ashari. Al-qiyamu bil-ashari, we ask Allah for tawfiq to give us this. The 9th point, the 9th principle of the path, fundamental of the path, is to stand up and basically pray at the ends of the nights. So this is night prayer, the night vigil prayer, our tahajjud prayer. So he says at-tasi'u as-sahar, which basically means waking at night, wakefulness at night. فلا ينام الثلث الأخير من الليل للتهجد والاستغفار وذكر الله تعالى. So the person will not sleep for the last third portion of the night for the sake of tahajjud and for the sake of istighfar, seeking forgiveness, and for the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that last third portion of the night will be spent for that purpose. In the summer, this is very easy to do. We don't have much of a night anyway, so the last third would only be maybe about 2 hours. And in winter that becomes a very long period of night. So it doesn't mean you must spend all 1/3 of the night. You have to remember where these books have been written. They're written in moderate climates where there's probably generally a decent night, and the fluctuation of Maghrib is not that much as we have here. But here the night finishes at 1:15 for a lot of people in the winter, in the summer. So either way, it's basically spending a portion at the end of the night, towards the end of the night, for this purpose. And then he tells us why. He says وَالْقِيَامُ فِي الْأَسْحَارِ وَإِلَيْهِ أَشَارَ بِقَوْلِهِ وَالْقِيَامُ فِي الْأَسْحَارِ وَخَصَّهُ بِالذِّكْرِ وَإِنْ دَخَلَ فِيمَا قَبْلَهُ لِمَزِيدِ الْإِعْتِنَاءِ بِهِ. He said that he specifically singled this one out, even though praying at night and so on would have been included in the first 8 principles about the dhikr of Allah and so on. That would have been included there in general, but he wanted to really focus on this and emphasize this separately. That's why. And the reason for it, he says, is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala madahahumullahu ta'ala fi ghayri ayah. Not just in one verse, but in many verses Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praised this activity, enlivening the last portion of the night. قال تعالى كانوا قليلا من الليل ما يهجعون وبالأسحار هم يستغفرون. They slept little at night and they would seek forgiveness. They would seek forgiveness bil-ashar, which basically means at the suhoor time, at the time you would be waking up for suhoor anyway. That's the time for istighfar. So you could say that it's a Quranic encouragement and recommendation to do istighfar at that time. One of the best times to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, remember when they came back to their father, and it became clear that what they may have done, and then they said to their father, please seek forgiveness for us. What did he say? سَأَسْتَغْفِرُ لَكُمْ رَبِّي. I'm going to seek forgiveness. So according to the Mufassir, it says that it's going to be at night tahajjud time. So that's one of the best times to seek forgiveness. وَلِلذِّكْرِ فِي ذَلِكَ الْوَقْتِ تَأْثِيرٌ أَكْثَرَ مِنْهُ فِي غَيْرِهِ. Dhikr at that time has the greatest effect more than at other times. There's a much greater effect of dhikr at that time than at other times. And do you know why? That is a time when they say the reason why that's one of the best times and most effective times is because that is the time when the evildoers of the night have finally gone to sleep and the evildoers of the day are not yet awake. That's like the purest time. Because the guys at night, because they party until 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 o'clock. I don't know what time the parties finish, but maybe 3, 4 o'clock. And the morning stuff doesn't start until maybe later on, you know, like after sunrise and so on. So that's why this is considered to be, in one sense, the best time for this kind of activity. And also from another personal perspective, it's probably the best time because if you've had some sleep, the neurons in the brain, they've had time, the brain has had time to settle and calm down, and all of the day's signals that have been going around, flashing through, that they've been able to calm down a bit. So when we wake up, we're not as preoccupied. It's a new day. It's a new moment. So that's probably the best time to focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we get the purest time to focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in the daytime, because we're so distracted, we can focus, but then there's too many distractions, lights bleeping and all sorts of other stuff that take us away. So this should be the best time. You don't expect calls at that time either, do you? Right? So, I mean, you don't expect text messages and all that stuff. Generally at that time anyway, people should shut off their notifications anyway. Okay, that was number 9. He didn't spend too much time on that because he said this stuff we've already discussed before anyway. But he then goes into the final point. The final point, which seems to be a rounding off of many of the other points. It's almost like he's repeating some stuff, but he's taking it from a different perspective. So what is the 10th principle of the path? He says, التفكر في مخلوقات الله ودوام الذكر. This is to ponder and reflect over the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's something of the path. We also ponder over the creation of Allah, but we do it for the wrong reason. You know, when you want to buy something and you're looking for the reviews as to which is the best product. When you want to buy a car, you go and test out different cars, read reviews online, ask people. That's all pondering over the remembrance of, pondering over the creation of Allah. But it's just for the wrong reason. It's not pondering over the creation of Allah to get to Allah. That seems to be more sometimes taking us away from Allah. So it's the wrong kind of pondering. But we do that, right? We do it all the time. Shopping is probably also, when you're shopping, it requires an element of review, to go and check things out, window shopping, test products out. That's all pondering over the dhikr of Allah, but in the wrong, pondering over the makhluqat of Allah. All of that is a creation of Allah. But what this means is pondering over that creation of Allah that reminds you of Allah, for the right reason to get to Allah. And the whole world is supposed to be that. It just depends on how you look at it. It just depends on how you look at it. There's a beautiful poem from Ibn al-Farid, Umar ibn al-Farid, one great spiritual poet. He says that يا أخت سعد من حبيبي جئتني برسالة أديتها بتلطفي فسمعت ما لم تسمعي ونظرت ما لم تنظري وعرفت ما لم تعرفي. So basically what he's saying here is that for the person who's looking into the creation of Allah with the right reason, with the right focus, with the right objective in mind, they will see much more than what others will see. It's like, let's just say that you went somewhere and somebody sent you a good old letter, right? They didn't want to email, but they wanted to really send a handwritten, personalized letter to you from a friend of yours. And the person who brought it to you brought it with respect and with care, and he gave it to you. Now when you open that letter, clearly it's been in this person's possession for the whole distance of that journey. So he's saying, maybe he's using, oh brother, oh sister of Sa'ad. Maybe she brought him the letter, that's why. He said, oh sister of Sa'ad, from my beloved did you bring me the letter which you also handed over to me with great kindness and perfection. Like you took all care to transfer it and transport it all the way to me, and you handed it over to me. But I heard from it that which you did not hear, and I saw in it what you did not see, and I I learnt what you did not learn. So basically you didn't get anything from that letter, though you carried it maybe for longer than I did. But the message that I got from it was greater than what you got from it. So we all look at things, but do we all get the same thing out of them? So it's about changing the way and focus of what we look at for. And I think the example is quite simple. You know, when you want to buy a new car and there's a certain car that then is pointed out to you, you then start seeing that car everywhere. Until then there were so many on the road, but you never saw them before. They used to just be nothing for you. But when you actually now are looking for that car, you actually start seeing all of them. Oh, that one's got an extra bumper. That one says this extra word on it. That means there's, you actually start seeing things when you focus on them. So focus is important. You're not going to just notice Allah, though Allah is supposed to be everywhere in terms of His bounties and His manifesting His power and His beauty and everything. But unless we're looking for Him, we veil Him because we're looking for other things too much. So, Allahu Akbar, Allah make it easy for us. So He says, Al-ashir at-tafakkur fi badi'i sun'illah. This is to ponder over the wondrous creation of Allah, the wondrous making of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لِإِدْرَاكِ دَقَائِقِ الْحِكَمِ. Why would you look at this? Not because you want to buy that, or you want, okay, I'm going to start looking at the trees because I want to plant some in my garden. That's not the same reason. You can plant them in your garden, that's fine, if they remind you of Allah. So He's saying that to look at the wondrous creation of Allah, to be able to perceive and comprehend the subtleties of His wisdoms. لِتَزْدَادَ عِلْمًا وَحُبًّا. So that you can increase in your awareness of Allah, knowledge of Allah, and your love of Allah. Look at this beauty, because the more characteristics you know of someone, the more you will become attuned to them. It's like I've got an option to buy 5 different phones. There's a HTC, there's an iPhone, there's a Samsung, and there's so many others. I don't know much about phones. I've had mine for many years maybe, and now I'm looking at all the recent phones. So I'm going to start learning, oh, but this has got this one's got this one doesn't have that, this one has this. The more I know, okay, it must be this one, I learn more. Yeah, that's a really good phone, that does this and it does that as well, battery power, so on. I suddenly become more and more connected to it, the more I learn about the virtues of it and the qualities of it. So we don't do that for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says this is the way to do it. When you look around, you actually start seeing what Allah does for us. You will increase. And you want to do it for that reason. وَالذِّكْرُ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَإِضْطِجَاعًا عَلَى سَبِيلِ الدَّوَامِ. One of the things that really helps this is to remember Allah. However that is, whether we're doing some tasbih or whether we're just thinking about Him, standing, sitting, and on our sides. And that shows that it doesn't have to be formally sitting for dhikr. It's just remembering Him, whether that be just tasbih, casual tasbih, or even just actually, rather than casual tasbih, just thinking about Him. What does He want in this situation? Oh Allah, help me. I'm in this situation. Oh Allah, help me. Make this easy for me. I've just had a little problem with the brother. Oh Allah, reconcile our hearts. Come on, I need reconciliation with this. Right? It's that kind of an idea, right? It's that kind of an idea that we're thinking about Allah in everything. We're making Him part of our life, whether we're standing up, whether we're sitting down, and whether we're lying down. Ala sabili dawam, and hopefully this can become permanent. That we can remember Allah in all different stages. Now, if we think back, when did we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala today? Before this, before we started talking about Him formally. So for example, yesterday, like imagine it, I was told that I may have said something and somebody may have been upset by that. So now I'm making the dua to Allah, oh Allah, please make it easy for us. Clear his heart for me. I didn't really mean it. That's a time to bring up Allah, as opposed to, oh no, I'm going to have to talk to him, or I don't care about it. I don't care if he feels bad. There's various different reactions. And it's amazing when you bring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the picture, that things start happening. It's quite amazing. Try it. A simple thing like that. You had a misgiving about somebody. Just make a dua. And you'll see that things begin to clear up. It's amazing. وَإِلَيْهِ أَشَارَ بِقَوْلِهِ وَالْفِكْرُ وَالذِّكْرُ عَلَى الدَّوَامِ. That's why the author says, reflection and remembrance perpetually. It needs to be, once this is built into your life, and it takes what? It takes a while, and I think it's going to be a lifelong process. But we hope that tomorrow we'll do it more than we do today. That's really what we're trying to do. And the next day it'll be more, and 10 years time it'll be even more. But if in 10 years time we're doing the same remembrance of Allah that we did today or last year, then we're not getting anywhere. Nobody's saying we'll get 100% connection like the Prophet ﷺ overnight, or if ever. But more than today, right? More than today, more than before, and more than yesterday. And every day we need to look at it like that. So we're the closest to Allah before we die that we could have been. وَعْلَمْ أَنَّ الذِّكْرَ أَعْظَمْ أَرْكَانِ الطَّرِيقِ. So he brings this last, but he says this is last, not the least. He says that know that the remembrance of Allah is the most mightiest, the most majestic, the most honorable principle of the path. Right? Out of the 10 that he's talking about, this is it. Because the maqsood, he kind of moves off the reflection part, goes more into the dhikr now. Right? He says because the objective, لأن المقصود منها, what is the objective of dhikr? Why should we sit and remember Allah, stand and remember? Why should we remember Allah at all? He said the main objective should be تخليص القلوب مما سوى الله تعالى. It is to basically free the heart from other than Allah. So that the main thing which is preoccupying our heart is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That doesn't mean that we drop everything else of the world and we don't even fulfill responsibilities and earn a living and eat and all the rest of it. We do all of that. But what's in our heart is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala primarily. That's occupying our heart. وَهُوَ أَعْظَمُهَا فِي ذَلِكَ. And the most effective way of gaining this is by dhikr of Allah. That's the thing. It's the most effective way of doing it. لأن كثرته توجب استيلاء المذكور على القلب. Now think about it. If you've got a project on that is very important, and it's a big project, and you're probably going to make a lot of money with that, and it requires let's just think about a marriage or a function. In a function or in a marriage or something like that, there's so many different things that you have to bring together, right? Order the food, guests, preparation, decoration, shopping, and so on and so forth. That's why generally what I say is that if you are going to get engaged, then make sure the engagement isn't too long until the marriage date, because otherwise every weekend becomes a shopping weekend. If you only have 3 weeks to prepare, it's only be 3 weeks of preparation and you'll get it all done. And if it's 6 months, then you'll probably be preparing every weekend anyway. So it's just an occupation of your life. But what happens then? Doesn't that become the first thing you think about and the last thing you think about before you go to sleep? Because it's preoccupied us. That's exactly what he's saying. He says that if you're going to do abundance of dhikr of Allah, right, then the abundance of it will necessitate the ascendancy, the elevation, the dominance of the one you're remembering upon your heart. It will, the more the dhikr you do, that will basically force the one you're remembering, who is Allah, right, to become the most foremost in our heart. So if we're thinking of a car or a marriage or a business or something foremost, that is going to be foremost in our heart. So it's just logical that the more you remember Him, then that's fine. And what a lot of people think, if I remember Allah, then I'm going to miss out on a lot of other stuff. But that never happens. What actually happens, what's amazing, which people don't get, but you have to experience to be able to do this, is that the more you remember Allah, the work becomes easier. Because Allah opens up your time, Allah opens your efforts, Allah opens up barakah, there's barakah in your time. So He's not saying exclusively remember me and just forget everything else and just sit and remember Allah. That's not what He's saying. Incorporate that in your work. So whenever you're doing something, you're still thinking about Allah at the back of your mind, just like you would be in anything else. If you've got a marriage to prepare for, or some other thing to prepare for, or moving of a house, you're still going to work. But at the back of your mind, you've got, I need to move, I need to do this today, I need to do that today. That's basically what he's saying, I think. حتى لا يكون فيه سواه, such that nothing else then preoccupies the heart like that. بل جميع الأركان تنشأ عنه. Then the benefit of that will be that because the heart is the controlling source of the body, all of the rest of our limbs will basically follow suit. So prayer will become easier, kindness will become easier, right? Humility will become easier, everything else will become easier. لأنه يورث القلب نورا ساطعا. Because the other spiritual thing that it does is that it creates a light that is emanating from the heart. We're not going to see this. Most people don't see this, but others may feel it. There will be a light that will emanate from the heart. بل به يزهد بالدنيا التي حبها رأس كل خطيئة. And by this light, or through this light now, it will satisfy you to such a degree that it will basically make you turn away from the world, from the love of the world, because the love of the world is the root of every problem. So you will have the world, you'll take it, you'll do it, you'll buy your car, you'll do everything else, you'll buy a house or whatever it is you have to, but it won't be done with obsession, because there's something else that is obsessing us. Right? وَلِذَا قَالُوا مَنْ أُعْتِيَ الذِّكْرَ فَقَدْ أُعْتِيَ مَنْشُورَ الْوِلَايَةِ. That is why the saying is, whoever has been given dhikr, meaning whoever's been given the love of dhikr, that they actually do dhikr all the time, then he has been given the plan of wilaya. He's basically been given tickets, the plan, the case for friendship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because to be honest, the most difficult thing is to be regular on your dhikr. That is just because too much distraction. So it's a massive competition. And if this can win, you're a wali of Allah. That's it. You're a wali of Allah. فَالْمُدَاوَمَةُ عَلَيْهِ الدَّلِيلُ وِلَايَةِ الْمُشْتَغِلِ بِهِ. In fact, if you see somebody who is regular on their dhikr, then consider that to be an evidence of their wilayat. There's no other wilayat. He doesn't need to show you any miracles. That's what people think, miracles. Right? You're going to be pulling money out of your musalla. Right? There's like a ATM machine there. That's wilayat. That's not wilayat. Wilayat is that we can become particular on the remembrance of Allah. To become permanent on it is an evidence for the wilaya of the one who is occupied that way. ولكونه أعظم الأركان وقع الحث عليه في القرآن المجيد أكثر من غيره من الأركان. And he says, because this is the greatest of the principles and the greatest of the fundamentals of the path, that is why so much encouragement has come about it in the Quran al-Majid, more than any of the other arkan. The mention of dhikr of Allah in the Quran is over and over and over again. That's why, look at the verses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. You remember me and I will remember you. Amazing. Very simple statement. You remember me and I'll remember you. That's Allah saying that. Now you know when a big person who you've got a lot of respect for, that you may have a lot of respect for, maybe that be a big scholar, a big celebrity, a big businessman, somebody that everybody's looking out for, right? And people would love to have a few minutes with them, even maybe shake their hands, right? And that person says to you that, you know what, I'll remember you. I remembered you. You just feel, oh man, me out of all of these people that would love to be remembered, why me? You're going to be amazed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, among the billions of objects around him that he looks after, he remembers us. While it's easier for Allah to remember us than anybody else, but it's also the most worthiest as well. We mustn't start thinking because Allah is easy for him to remember hundreds and thousands of people at once. It's not a big deal. Subhanallah. Of course it's a big deal, you know. Some people look at things in a different way. Right? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing, sitting, and on their sides, and they are pondering, they reflect and ponder over the creation of the heavens and the earth. Because that's Allah's, that's why he ponders over it. If somebody's infatuated with Steve Jobs, well, they're going to get the iPhone. Right? They're going to get the iPhone. There's somebody who's got an iPad to sell, so his brother-in-law said, my nephew is obsessed with the iPhone, let me ask him. So he sent him the advert. It's like the top end iPhone, not iPhone, so it's an iPad. So he says, yeah man, who wouldn't want a new iPad? But right now I'm having to save money for something, for a house or something. So that's the only, otherwise who wouldn't want one? That's your love for it. You're saying who wouldn't want another one? وقال تعالى قل الله ثم ذرهم في خوضهم يلعبون. These are just a few of the verses, but he's chosen a very good selection of verses about dhikr. He says, say Allah. Right? Yeah, just say Allah, then leave them to be engrossed in their play. Let them carry on in their entertainment and their play and their futile entertainment. You just say Allah. That's amazing. I mean, just pondering over these, they strike, mashallah, in the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم فئة فاثبتوا واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. O people who believe, if you are to meet your enemy, meet the group, meet your foe, then be firm. Be firm, but don't just be firm. This is the mistake we make. We have a lot of fervor. When we've got these attacks against us, whether that be school related, whether that be Islamophobia related, there's a people who, mashallah, very moved to campaign. So they do a lot of campaign, right? So they, mashallah, you see these people, they don't seem to be very practicing, but they're willing to go out and do more than other people, right? Because they've got a lot of drive. And it doesn't matter what happens, then they're willing to stand up for the truth. So yes, we should do that. As he says, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, that when you confront your enemy, whatever that enemy is, then you should stand firm. But then we miss the next part. Where you're going to get the energy from this, from an effectiveness. Are we just relying on ourselves? That I've got a lot of zeal and I've got a lot of strength and I've got a lot of commitment? Is that all it is? We want also efficacy. We also want a positive effect. And that comes from وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And remember Allah abundantly, so that you can be successful. So your success isn't just going to come by steadfastness, it's also going to come through the remembrance of Allah. This is where I think a lot of people miss out. They think it's all about planning and all that. That's all there. That has to be there. That's part of it. But that's only half the story. Because at the end of the day, we're doing things for the sake of Allah, that's what we're claiming, but we don't even bring Allah into the picture. That's why there was one madrasa. It was the first time that they had a very important conference, right? In which, so what the shuyukh done is that they got 2 or 3 people just to be sitting on the side throughout, just doing dhikr of Allah. For the barakah, it's like they were providing the power source. Can you imagine it? Like you charge the battery. Unfortunately, we're just becoming too reliant on our own glamour and the way we do things and all that. That should be done. We should have the best organization. Do it. Have the best. But don't forget that. There's somebody recently, he had a problem with somebody else. And he did some istighfar. Hassan Basri's 70 istighfar, he read those. And read something else. And mashallah, events began to turn. It had gotten very bad, but then it softened out. Miraculous, why did it soften out? But it's because you're asking Allah to intervene. Like somebody goes, you say, please, can you just have a word with them? And they do. It doesn't remove the problem completely, because that takes time, but at least somebody mentioning something puts in a positive. So we're saying to Allah to do that, and He has the most power to do anything. Allah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Then he says, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. The next verse he says, وَذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَانْتَصَرُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا ظُلِمُوا. And these are the people who remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, and then they defended themselves after they were oppressed. So even with that, even when you're being oppressed, well, you're probably going to remember Allah generally anyway, but you must remember Allah there. And then you defend yourself. Then Allah says, وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. The remembrance of Allah is most superior, is the greatest. And then Allah says, وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَالذَّاكِرَاتِ. And those who abundantly remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the male and the female. and numerous other verses, but this is sufficient to underscore the idea of how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be of help if to us and to our benefit. So we stop here for today, but in the next session it's talking about وَالذِّكْرُ نَوْعَانِ. There are two types of dhikr. So inshallah we'll cover that next time. Basically this dhikr that he just mentioned about how does a person become a dhakir, a remember of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are two ways to do this, and inshallah we'll look at that next time. دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث اللهم يا حنان يا منان لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Oh Allah, we ask you for your forgiveness. Oh Allah, we ask you for your blessings. We ask you for your special attention. We ask you for your generosity. Oh Allah, grant us your love and the love of those whose love benefits us in your court. Oh Allah, protect us from distractions. Oh Allah, grant us the love for you and your remembrance. Make us of those who remember you abundantly and who thank you abundantly, and make us of the grateful servants. Oh Allah, protect us from ingratitude. Oh Allah, protect us from all forms of kufr and ingratitude. Oh Allah, you have given us abundantly. Oh Allah, you have given us more than so many others in this world. Oh Allah, we cannot thank you enough. Oh Allah, we ask that you do not make whatever you have given to us a source of fitna and temptation and trial for us. Oh Allah, do not make what you have given us a source of distraction for us and a source of heedlessness for us. Oh Allah, we ask that you do not allow us to use what you have given us to disobey you. Oh Allah, we ask you forgiveness from those sins that we've committed using the very resources that you have granted us. Oh Allah, we ask that you do not allow the resources that you have given us to make us arrogant and to make us conceited and to make us think we're better than others. Oh Allah, do not make us among the arrogant who stride around this world. Oh Allah, make us of the humble ones. Oh Allah, make us of the compassionate ones. Make us of the loving ones. Oh Allah, we ask that you remove the darknesses from our life. Oh Allah, many sins bring about darkness and problems and take away the mercy and take away the blessings from our life. Oh Allah, return the mercy to our lives. Oh Allah, grant us the innocence that a small child has. Oh Allah, make us pure and freed from sin. Oh Allah, make the difficulties easy for us. Oh Allah, remove the fitna and the temptations from our path. Oh Allah, give us the fortitude in our heart to resist whatever is around us. Oh Allah, allow us to be productive and useful. Oh Allah, that which you have given us, allow us to use it wisely and usefully and productively. Oh Allah, make us the keys to goodness in this world. Oh Allah, make us forces of positivity in this world. Oh Allah, we ask you to bring insaniya back in the insan. Help our Muslim brothers and sisters around the world and remove them and all of us and remove all persecution, remove all oppression. Oh Allah, we ask that you grant us the kalima la ilaha illallah on our deathbed. And oh Allah, that you make us go from this world in the best state that we could be. Oh Allah, make the rest of our life from now better than the previous part of our life. Oh Allah, above all, we ask you that you protect us and especially our spouses, families, and especially our children and progeny until the day of judgment. Oh Allah, that you make them a source of gladness for us. You make the Quran part of our life, and you make the Sharia part of our ethos. And oh Allah, we ask that you send your abundant blessings on our Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You grant us his company in the hereafter. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.